health centers. Another thing that is very, very important to me is that right now, if you look at the levels of the services that are being given from the Office of the Public Health, which also is part of what we are talking about. Another thing that the Public Health Department right now, the health
Right. Thank you, Mr. Ogoge, for the same. And last but not least, we go to Madam Ishungwa, who will also be asked the same on the health sector.
Mine is a question of how do we make health equitable or accessible to all? And I would like us to refrain from also looking at some of the big things that an MCA does, yet their scope of work does not entail that. My MCA job entails a lot of it is lobbying. And towards the health sector, it's an issue of lobbying and ensuring that resources are allocated to the health sectors that we are talking about. You're talking about that we don't have a health facility. How do I lobby? How do I get the resources allocated so that we get the health facilities set up? How do we also get that the public access or the public hospitals that are here, that they have access to drugs, they have access to competent doctors, so they have access to, you don't have to go to the private hospitals because those are the majority hospitals that are here. That's a question of also how do we lobby and ensure capacity building drugs are also available and accessible so that the common wananchi is able to go and get treated and get the drugs. You can remember the case of COVID, how it was so rampant that we could not even get access to a medical facility. That is when we were tested how our medical facilities, the structures and the capabilities. Mine will be more of oversight. Mine will be more of resource allocation to issues that are very paramount, and it's a top priority when it comes to the resident of Kikuyu.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, the three of you. And to them that are here, you have heard each and every aspirant and their goals and their aspirations when they assume office in as far as the health sector is concerned. If you have any question on the same, kindly note it at the tail end. We could be asking you to pose the same to them. We go to the second question, and again we start from the far left here on my left, Mr. Winaina. And the question is on Kikuyu Ward has really grown, developed and everything in terms of infrastructure, in terms of even the structures that are being constructed.
One, we know the office. We were very keen in waste management, that is environment. We came up with a very big project in Thika called at Kangoki, which was funded by Japanese, whereby we were recycling garbage and we produced methane and fertilizer. That was one of the key projects which we endeavor in terms of management. Even in Nairobi County, at that time, they were dumping at the water. So we had a big plan of garbage and recycling the garbage. Here in Kikuyu town, we had a program whereby all the traders in Kikuyu town and other outskirts town, we were collecting garbage each and every day, whereby the garbage truck was going around Kikuyu town collecting the garbage. We even had skips located in each and every market, in each and every trading center, whereby all the traders can put up their garbage in the skips. Then the skips are loaded by the trucks, modern trucks, and they were ferried to where the garbage was. At that time, there was no issue of garbage piling up within our vicinity because we had an elaborate plan in all the town. Therefore, we came up also with a legislation of giving licenses to private garbage collectors
where we are trying and also inculcating the culture of a family planting trees. In partnership with a lot of stakeholders, I am in possession of seed trees to be tried, because that is an initiative of everyone to plant a tree. So you can imagine a 1 billion tree challenge is what I am also going to adapt once I become an MCA. There's also a question of adapt a river, or what we call adapt a forest. This is an initiative that I have done when I was in Kikuyu and will still continue doing. Adapt a river is in case of just cleaning up our riverways and also cleaning out any debris, any measures that we could be having that are making the rivers not clean. We have adapt a forest, where we are going to encourage communities to adapt forest and then plant trees to become a community forest. There are issues of open spaces, or what we call recreation spaces. A good example is the Jivanji Garden in Kikuyu. It's an issue of just beautification. We would love to have beautiful spaces where we can have time to spend and leisure, and also even take our family out for photos there. There's also a question of urban planning. How do we effectively plan structures? How do we effectively plan what we call either structures that are around our area of operation? We need to zone out and protect areas where we are going to plant trees and do the beautification. And the last bit will be an issue of also what we call either just a culture, talking to people and nurturing these ETOs. We're going to start environment clubs where kids are going to adapt the initiatives and the culture of taking care of the environment, so that as they grow becoming knowing that I need to take care of the environment. And nurturing these
Thank you.
ETOs, we're going
And
to
thank you
start
all for
environment
that
clubs
agenda, the
where kids
environment
are going to
agenda.
adapt the
Another
culture
critical
of
sector is the
environment
education sector. And looking at the scope that has been given by the Constitution to the Office of MCA, this is in the early childhood development, that is ECDE education. And then we have the TVETs, that is technical and vocational institutes. Now, one of you will be assuming office, and we are wishing all of you the very best during the elections. Once you take over office, Mr. Wakogi, what is your plan in terms of ECDs and TVETs within Kikuyu Ward?
Thank you very much indeed, and I must say that in my manifesto I have a 7-point agenda. One of those agendas, because Kikuyu has has only one youth polytechnic, which is the Roboto Youth Polytechnic. But if you go there, you'll find out that the skills that are being offered are not relevant to the modern day marketplace. And therefore, I'm going to modernize that polytechnic so that I ensure that it attracts more students. So have production units in every department. For instance, if you go to if you visit that polytechnic, you'll find that those students who are learning about tailoring are doing so with papers. And of course, they cannot really be very competent in the world out there. I'm going to make sure that the biggest uniform distribution center in Kikuyu Ward is at Roboto Youth Polytechnic. The other thing is that I'm going to ensure that we have about 5 ECD centers in Kikuyu that have a primary school. And then we have 3 more which do not have any learning that is ongoing. We have one at Odile, we have the other one at Agoreti Market, and the other one at Paradeki. I'm going to ensure that those ECD centers are fully equipped. And of course, if you go to a place like Paraneki, you'll find that even those children who are introduced to early learning end up going to very far places. Ifamako, the water primary, Mamangina, to access education. I'm also going to ensure that we have the daycares, because young mothers are really suffering for where to raise their children. So I'll make sure that I'm going to have functional daycares in this one.
Right, thank you. And the same question I want to pose it to Madam Anne on ECD and vocational training within Kikuyu Ward.
Thank you. It's interesting that learning begins at a very early stage. That's the young kids. But it's also interesting the What is the environment? What is the painting on the
that initiative. So we had a very elaborate plans whereby even our polytechnics, we were giving them jobs or contracts for the county government. For instance, the Kikuyu Township ECD wall was constructed by Logoto Polytechnic, and they generated revenue by themselves. We had okay.
Sorry, time is up. Thank you for that. The one problem that has been highlighted, not just in Kikuyu Ward, but across Kenya, is with the youth. Because it is being said that the youth are becoming hopeless. The youth are saying they're not interested in this election. And the reason is because they feel they are not being taken seriously. So they are asking, why should I take part in an election? Yet when these people get into those offices, they forget about us. So I want to pose this to each and every one of you. Your elaborate and very distinct agenda when it comes to youth empowerment. And when we say youth empowerment, we don't mean, well, it could be your agenda, I don't know, but your real concrete roadmap to youth empowerment. And I want to start with Madam Ann.
I represent the youth, so that means I have the youth at heart. And one of the biggest challenges that we have found with the youth is an issue to do with first of all, even before we empower them, is a social abuse, or what we are calling, they have gone into depression, they have no employment. A lot of things have pushed them to feeling that they do not belong in this economy. Mine, first of all, is to create an environment that will bring them back. And how do I do that? I will do that by, first of all, creating a forum for the youth. The youth want to be heard. We have youth at home and they want to be heard. Creating a platform for the youth where they can come, voice, raise their issues, go beyond raising their issues, create a platform where they can also be leaders. Youth want platforms where they can be leaders. In as I form my office or my structure is to have more of the youth, because the youth have the skills, they have the innovative know-how of how to run organizations and how to run institutions, is only they don't have the platform. The other one also, it's an issue of unemployment, because that's why the youth feel that we are not empowered. We don't have a shilling in the pocket and we are not empowered. How do I create employment? It's more of opportunities. Opportunities are there. How do I link them up with these opportunities? It's a question of they need not only just get jobs, but how do they work? How do they become marketable and create work that will also earn them? These opportunities can either be found between partnerships with private sectors. How do I reach out to the private sector so that they can include youth in the workforce? A lot of us have employed the youth, but we always complain of an issue of they don't deliver. They don't deliver at all. How do we then capacity build this youth so that they can deliver? Youth are people who are innovative. They don't want monotony. These are people who want new skills every now and then. How do we also even create in our work environment opportunities that allow them to explore their creativities and innovation? It's a question of even training the business people, the employers, of how the kind of environment that the youth would want so that they can become adaptive, so that they can become productive.
Thank you. Mr. Winaina, the same is posed to you in terms of youth empowerment and how you purpose to empower the young people within KIKUYU ward.
One, we had a plan for the construction of amphitheater at WT whereby 50 of rand, and we were we nurture their talents and support them to move forward. I'm on record as one of the pioneers in installation of free Wi-Fi in KIKUYU. During our tenure, we had free Wi-Fi in 4 towns, that is Thika, Loiro, Kiambu, and KIKUYU were the beneficiaries. And we were to have that free Wi-Fi in entire KIKUYU ward, so that our youth can enjoy digital economy, they can enjoy online economy, and they can have that chance to express themselves, to earn a revenue through free Wi-Fi. After we left office, the Wi-Fi lapsed. So I will revive that Wi-Fi and make sure the entire KIKUYU ward, the youth can enjoy free Wi-Fi. The other thing is, I will support the energy of the youth. We create a stadium in Virime Primary School, whereby our youth can come and nurture their talent. We can support them, and they can have their talent uplifted up to the level of their capabilities.
Thank you. Mr. Wakogi, youth empowerment.
The first thing that I'm going to do is to ensure that there is a policy in place in Kiambu County Assembly that internships, there is mandatory internship for our young people, because our students in universities and college cannot really be able to find internship opportunities in the county government of Kiambu. The other thing that I'm going to ensure is that we have a youth resource center, because KIKUYU has no youth resource center. So that will be able to bring them together And even when we want to capacity build, we'll have a common place to do that. Another thing that I'm going to ensure is that we are able to help them become entrepreneurs. I must say this, that Kenya is importing 6 containers of toothpick from China every year. If you look at the machine that is used to make toothpick, it is costing less than 500,000. And this is something that can really be used to empower youth in this area. Another thing that we are going to do is to ensure that the local institutions, for instance the alliances, gives tendering processes to our people. In fact, they participate in the same and they are awarded. Because if you go to a place like Alliance High School, for instance, you'll find that a person who has the tender to supply eggs comes all the way from Kajiado. And that is really not promoting the locals. We are going to ensure that our young people have the capacity. The county government has a fund that they call Biashara Fund, and that is the money that we are going to use to empower our youth into business. Another thing that I'm going to ensure is that we diversify sports, because the leaders who have been there previously have made us believe that the only sport that can be played or participated in this world is football. We want to make sure that we have basketball courts. We want to ensure that we have indoor games for our youth. And we want to ensure that our youth are able to participate in those sports.
All right. Thank you for that. As we were looking at the empowerment of the youth and how we can be able to involve the youth in terms of leadership and taking part in the affairs of Kikuyu Ward. I'm trying something in me, because I have a soft spot for sports. So I want to give each and every candidate a minute on what they plan to do in terms of sports in Kikuyu Ward, because I've been from Kikuyu town to Dagoretti Market to every corner of this place. And if there is one place that is well blessed with talent of all kinds of sports, it's in Kikuyu Ward. So a minute each, what you purpose to do in terms of development of talent, harnessing of that talent, and ensuring that the same, it's not a must that these young people should be employed. They can find employment in sports. So in a minute, what are you planning in terms of sports for the youth in Kikuyu Ward, Mr. Wainaina?
One, I'll make sure that we have a modern stadium whereby all the sports are confined in that stadium. Then we nurture the youth talents in every aspect of the sport, from at the tender age of 10, we have different stages of sport academy, from 10 years up to 22 years. We nurture them as they grow up to the level of their capability.
All right, thank you. Madam Anne.
It's interesting that during COVID, we began a project around sports in partnership with other donors. And this was teaching the young youth karate and the different, it's called taekwondo skills. And it was during that moment when I understood and I saw that sports is not only football. So for me, it will be a question of first of all analyzing the different sport interests that the youth have, and thereafter engaging the experts. These people need to be exposed to experts. And I came to understand during COVID that even training can happen on Zoom. So it doesn't mean that we will be disadvantaged that if you're in the interior places of Kikuyu Ward, you will not have access to the expert. So expose them to the expert, get them trained, and thereafter, during our project and the Rotary Club of Kikuyu, we created a portal where we have different skills, where we call like buyer meet seller. These people have been trained, these people have the capability to begin an opportunity or an activity around the sport that they have been nurtured. Why don't they open their own institution and also train the other youth? So it will be a question.
All right, thank you. Wakoge, you have a minute to finalize on your point on sports.
I talked about football being the most glorified sport in Kikuyu Ward. And of course, if you look at all the football teams we have in KIKUYU, they are surviving on handouts. And it is tragic, because even those who give sometimes get what we call donor fatigue. I want to make sure that the local corporates, the companies we have here, we approach them to sponsor our youth, our teams that we have around here. Another thing that I'm going to do, if you go to Ondire, they have 5 acres of public land. If you go to Varandeki, they have over 50 acres of public land. I'm going to ensure that in those spaces, we create one sport academy, and also where even our young people can learn coaching for various sports. And also at the same time, I'm going to ensure that somewhere, maybe even at Ondire wetland, along the riparian space, we have an Olympic-sized public swimming pool where our youth.
All right, thank you. Take it from me. I may not follow up on the other agenda that you have shared, but on sports, when you assume office, whoever assumes office, I will follow up on the sports agenda. Thank you very much for that. We go to the next one, and this one is very sensitive. It's a very emotive one. It's the thorny issue of land reforms, and we're talking of public lands within the county of Kiambu, and specifically within KIKUYU ward. So we do know within the ward of public utility land that we are supposed to be utilizing for public benefits. We know of land that has been encroached. We know of developments within public land that has been done without authorization, maybe, and even a lack of public participation. So, Mr. Wakoke, starting with you, I don't know what your agenda for the lands, the public lands within KIKUYU ward is, and when you assume office, what you purpose to do.
There is no community around KIKUYU ward that do not have public land. And I'm going to make sure that we reclaim those public lands and they are given title deed. If you go to Ondire wetland, you will find that, Ondire area, you will find that the community there is still under, the land there is still under Nairobi land office, which is very unfortunate because it is leasehold. The other thing is that every person, now that KIKUYU ward is under KIKUYU municipality, is paying for the land rates. Every person who has a title deed in KIKUYU ward is supposed to pay for the land rates, whereby no public participation was done. And people are being penalized a lot of money. And these are some of the things that we are going to streamline once we assume office on the 10th of August, God willing.
Thank you. Mr. Wainaina, your agenda, lands in KIKUYU ward.
For one, land issue is a very thorny issue, and all the mess which is in KIKUYU were done during the defunct county government. Then, when we came in, we mapped all the public lands. Unfortunately, most of them, even the cattle deeds, people had title deeds. And to revoke those title deeds, you had to go to the High Court so that they can be revoked. So it's a very thorny issue, but the few which we got, we we protected them, and we came up with how we can have social amenities constructed in those public lands. Unfortunately, the county government are not the one who are in charge of those public lands. We have the National Land Commission, which must be involved in those public lands. So in terms of constructing anything in those public lands, you have to have authority from the National Land Commission. That is a hiccup in terms of registration. And those are the things which the national government should come up with a good registration to give county government more power on the public land more than the National Land Commission. So we have the inventory of all those public lands in our files. But we cannot have them revoked until the national government, the National Land Commission, go to court and all those public lands are being revoked. But the few we have protected them. Yet.
All right. The same to you, Madam Anne, on public lands within Kikuyu ward.
Mine, just like any other leader, when you take into office, you need to take stock of what you have. So it's a question of beyond even the land, what assets do we have as a ward? What liabilities are there? Are we going to inherit as a ward so that you can act accordingly? The issue of land, obviously we know it is not devolved, but that doesn't mean that I will not be involved. It's a question of, after we have identified some of the land that have been grabbed, how do we escalate into the national government so that we start lobbying and corrective actions are taken. Remember also, this is not an issue of working in isolation as an MCA. My adjacent MCAs would also be having similar challenge, but once we get together and prioritize our agenda, I'm sure these are some of the things that we are going to advocate for as one voice. But for me, it's first take stock of the assets and the liabilities.
Right, thank you. That is in as far as the public lands within Kikuyu ward is concerned. We go to the other one, which I think will take us to the tail end of our debate this evening. And this one is another one which is very critical to the development of Kikuyu ward. And this is the county roads within Kikuyu ward. The feeder roads that make it accessible to the main roads, and what you plan to do in as far as bringing that development, bringing and ensuring the county roads within Kikuyu wards are well done, Mr. Wainaina.
One, I will upgrade 100% to bitumen standard all the main tracks. Main tracks means all those main tracks joining each and every area. If it's Kitivamako, we have the main tracks, Dogoto, Ondire, Dagureti, Baraneki, all the areas, we make sure that we have the 100% upgrade to bitumen standard. Then the feeder roads, I'll make sure that 100% of all the feeder roads are motorable. They can be assessed in all weather roads, in all weather conditions. That is using, we have a technology which is in Israel, and we did a demonstration here in Kiambu using the soil stabilization, that is permazet. We did what do we call it? We call it soil stabilization, whereby we put enzyme, we mix with soil, then we compact, and we were given 10 years guarantee for that technology, which is being used in Israel. So I will elevate all the access road using permazet, that is soil using enzyme, and we did a demonstration in Thika, and up to now, that they made sure that would have a guarantee of 10 to 15 years.
And Madam Anne, as you are doing a campaign to the different parts of Kikuyu ward, and you have seen some of the roads that are being used are not so good. So
simply because somebody slept on the job. There was no proper oversight. Resources allocated for constructions of the road, but nobody follows through to ensure that these roads have been upgraded to the standard that they should be. So my oversight. From the time that we have been allocated, whatever budget allocation is set for the road, have those roads actually been worked on? Have those roads actually the standard? The other issue is is a question of also even maintenance. You find that the roads are there, but they were good, but they have not been properly maintained. It's also a question of oversight and ensuring that if you have been given work, can you deliver? If you don't deliver, then we get you out and then we get somebody who is able to deliver. I think it's an issue of laxity when it comes to oversight. It's not even an issue of resources. We had a case of where resources have been diverted for a road that we had been given. Why would an MCA allow resources to be diverted if you are giving proper oversight when it comes to your people representation? So mine would be more of getting the oversight done and ensuring the right and the quality and the standard of roads in terms of the scope of work is done.
All right, thank you. Oversight to ensure everything that is supposed to be done is done. And Mr. Wakogi, you can wrap up that agenda for us, the county roads.
Kiambu County government managed 19 billion shillings in the financial year 2021-2022. And a lot of that money was allocated to roads. For instance, here in Kikuyu, being one of the municipalities that we have a lot of money that is channeled to this area through Kenya Urban Support Program, or KUSI. That is the money we see being used to tarmac Ondire, Kidifamago, Kiawamagira, and Dagoretti area. I'll make sure that the roads get proper road furniture, that we have community participation through people affected by the project committee, grievance redress mechanism committee, so that these people are able to get quality from the contractors. The other thing is that I'm going to make sure that all the roads in Kikuyu ward are named, because Kiambu County has no policy for road naming. So I'll make sure that all those roads are named. The other thing that I'm going to ensure is that proper drainage and other road furniture is in place. If you look at the sewer project, which is under construction here in Kikuyu ward, you realize that it has really damaged our roads. I'll make sure that every road has service duct, so that in future, whenever there is any service that is being carried out along that road, it will not damage the road. I'll also ensure that we have proper pedestrian path, because this is a very densely populated area. So the other thing that I'll ensure, if you go to places like Kiawamagira and the Hoto, people are really suffering because of floods. I'll make sure that the blockages that we have seen, because there is a lot of blockages of those drainages, that they are regularly unblocked, so that...
Right, thank you. It's the time, sorry. So, I'm looking at the agendas and you have done well. Let's appreciate the gentleman and the lady for such a job well done. And before I allow them to sit, allow me first of all to appreciate every one of you kwa kufika hapa jioni ya leo. So we appreciate you so very much. Thank you for finding time to come and just engage with us during this very important Kikuyu Ward MCA's debate. Allow me also at this point to appreciate and recognize the presence of Mr. Kihara. And Mr. Kihara is one of the many people who have allowed us to hold this in this particular hall. So let's appreciate Mr. Kihara as well. Yeah, so thank you so very much, Mr. Kihara. Our regards also to the entire team. Now I want to open it to very few questions. And we said we are to carry ourselves with a lot of decorum, all right? So no hurling of insults, no pointing fingers, nothing. All we want is the best for Kikuyu Ward, right? So we want to give the audience an opportunity to ask a question. And whichever question you ask, all of them will answer, all right? So do we have anyone with a question? Yeah, I see a hand here, so you can give a mic here. So a question, and then we give all the candidates a chance for them to answer. Your name, and then you pose your question.
So I'm Bob. My question is on agriculture. The land, a lot of Kikuyu area was an agriculture, whatever. it was zoned to be used for agriculture. But at the moment, you are moving from agricultural land to real estate. As a MCA, any of you, what are you going to do to ensure that there is a balance such that we do not have a real estate and people are suffering due to food security? So what are you going to do to ensure that Kikuyu Ward residents are food secure? And what are you going to do to make sure the food is good for consumption?
Yep, so his question is about real estate and agriculture. So according to him, his concern is that a lot of the land that was to be used, arable land that is to be used for agriculture, is being converted into real estate. So he is asking, whoever wins, what are you going to do to either strike a balance or ensure that agriculture continues without being affected by real estate?
Can I answer?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Being the first MCA of Kikuyu, we did the zoning of entire Kiambu County, whereby we zoned the agricultural land, industrial, and for human settlement. Unfortunately, after we left, the zoning was scrapped. That's why we have those subdivisions. And we came up with a very good policy whereby you cannot construct in a certain parcel of land until you leave some space for agriculture. So that policy was there, but it was watered down by our successors. Then we have to educate our people in terms of the benefit of having agriculture vis-a-vis real estate. But the real estate is gaining more revenue more than agriculture. It's a matter of balancing both of them. That policy should be reverted back and implemented to the rata in terms of zoning. Then during our tenure, we were to have an organic fertilizer in the great market. We did a very good visibility study in 2016, whereby the chain, that is Dada in the local language, we have that factory whereby it could have employed more than 200 youths in the great market using that raw material, whereby we generate 4 million tons per day for that chain, that is Dada. Then we have to come up with agri-business, whereby we have those modern technologies in agriculture. And we take agriculture as a form of business. We also need to encourage modern technologies like, because due to subdivision, we have those greenhouses elevated each and every homestead.
All right. Yeah, Mr. Wakogi.
The first thing that I must say is that humanity is in transition. And of course, we have to adjust with the times. You've seen that large-scale farming in Kikuyu Ward has become a thing of the past. Actually, most people who are in agricultural businesses or agribusiness are doing horticultural farming. And of course, the question that was posed to us talks about the safety of the food, because we know that for sure, for most farmers to maximize their yields, they are using some fertilizers. Some of them are chemical fertilizers, which comprises of very dangerous metals. And of course, the first thing that we are going to do is to encourage use of organic farming and to ensure that the agricultural officers do not sit in the office and wait for the paycheck, but they go to the farmers themselves and they give them proper advice based on what are the best practices. Another thing that we are going to ensure is that we support farmers who come up with diverse methods of farming. For instance, there is a farmer I met who is doing the black soldier flies. There is another one that I met who is doing fish keeping in a greenhouse. And those are the kind of businesses that we need to support. And of course, if you go to a place like Ondiri, you'll find that people are still doing farming, which of course is diversified. And that is also another area that we really want to support the locals and to ensure that they do not only farm, but they also have market for their produce. We'll make sure that a place like KIKUYU Market has a place for farmers market where they can come and sell their produce.
Right, thank you. And the same, Madam.
It's a surprise that when you look at the composition of the county government revenue, the highest comes from urban planning. That means a lot of agricultural land has been turned into development land. But also that begs the question, why did people denounce farming and venture into commercial or real estate? It's a question that they did not see value. They did not see the value for productivity of the piece of land that they are in. So mine would be a question of, first of all, enhancing what we call smart farming techniques. We have a lot of expertise when you talk about smart farming. Why don't we expose, if you have just a quarter of an acre, how can you deal with smart farming to increase the productivity, which is equivalent to putting up probably a 1 flat or a 2 flat. The other question also is a question of why don't we give them access to finance? They would want to farm. They would want to have mechanization. They don't have funds to allow them to grow and also increase the productivity yield of their piece of land. So it will be putting more resources when it comes to access to finance so that they are able to do farming. They come away from what we call traditional farming method. And the other is a question of also even circular economy. You find that we are moving away from the traditional kind of farming. It's not only maize and beans, but the circular economy. How do we enhance, if you're into agriculture, how do you reuse the waste? Because there is value in every output, it becomes an input in the next stage. So it will be more of training, capacity training for the farmers, giving them access to what we call expertise, and also giving them the knowledge when it comes to innovative farming method, so that we can separate. If lands was set or zoned for development, let them be used for development, but you must show the value. Compare the value of putting up a flat and compare the value when you come to farming. How much can you get from a small piece of land? So it will be more of policy, but also more of knowledge transfer.
Right, thank you. Any other question? Yeah, give him. Then.
Thank you, moderator, and the entire house. There's this issue that is erupting every other time, that once a leader is elected, there is a very bad relationship with other leaders on top there, and that one has lagged behind many areas. May they tell us how they are going to cope up with that problem, so that they are not going to dance with the tunes of the senior leaders at the expense of the citizens who elected them?
You had the question. So you dance to the tune of the seniors. You forget the people who voted for you. So in short, what he's asking is a good working relationship from the top coming through to all the leaders. So how are you going to enhance that relationship?
Even in organizations that we do work, there is what we call the kind of culture that you create. And my model is very simple. It's a 3C model in terms of, am I building consensus? In terms of what am I doing? It's not my own doing, but I'm representing the people. Building consensus downwards and upward. They will require a lot of collaborations. I cannot work in isolation as an MCA. I will need the buy-in of the other MCA. For me to push all the policies, all the lobby work that we must do, I must need the collaborative nature of the other MCAs. How do I create a harmonized working environment with the other MCAs so that we can be seen that we are working and we are one voice? And the other one is also in terms of participatory. How do I also participate in the agenda when they are brought on the assembly? How do I contribute, and how do I become somebody who can table issues and debate on issues? But also the question of when you become very knowledgeable, very wise, they tend to put you down. But I can also tell you, when you also become a watchdog, they will also fear you. When you also become somebody who put your foot down and give them proper oversight, they will also fear you. So I will not be intimidated. I have faced similar challenges and have risen above the occasion. So you need not to worry in terms of if I don't dance to their tune what happens, they must turn to my team.
Right. Mr. Wakoke, you heard his concern about working relationship. So how do you create?
We say that there is no friend like consultation. And of course, mine will be a consultative leadership. I'm not being elected and promoted into a boxing ring or an arena of hooliganism, but I'm being elected to go and legislate, represent, and oversight. And I'm going to do that, or to perform those three duties with a lot of diligence, and believing that for success of this work to be achieved, I must embrace teamwork. I must work with the sitting governor. I must work with my colleagues in the assembly. I must work with the senator, the women rep, the MP. Otherwise, I'm not really doing any form of abrasive leadership, but I'm here to serve. And also for the community, I'll make sure that I consult with the community. In fact, so far, I've been able to work with the community to register 3 resident associations and counting. And we are going to have them, and those resident associations will be the pillar of my leadership agenda.
Right. Mr. Wainaina, do you have the qualities to ensure a conducive environment for working?
One, the Constitution is very clear on the mandate of each and every elected leader. And if you are elected, you're not supposed to be a sycophant or a mouthpiece of any leader. If you are an MCA, you are not supposed to be a sycophant of the governor. You have your mandate of oversight and representation and legislation. Just do your work, and the rest will come on board. But there is that collaboration and networking. For instance, during my tenure, when I issue bursary to any of the students, I had to submit that list to the MP's office so that they come up with their own ways of not duplicating what I'm doing. There is that collaboration, but it will not be the expense of your mandate according to the Constitution. You have to stand on your feet, you have to be your own, you have to do as
All right, we can take one close on the questions. So that we can cover as much. It's good work.
Will you see to it that there is ease of doing business in Kikuyu word?
Yeah, okay.
It is so unfortunate that Kikuyu has become one of the hardest places to do business. For instance, there is a permit that they call single business permit, but within it, you pay the health permit, you pay fire permit, you pay on-site advertisement permit, you pay garbage collection permit, and also you pay permit for that class of business. If you have a hardware, you are forced to pay for garbage collection and health permit, yet you are not even handling food stuff. The other thing that is really very difficult is that if you go to Kikuyu town, you are paying 100 shillings. I remember there is a former governor who employed so many young people, and he told them, I'm giving you employment, but not salaries. So get salaries yourselves. And that's why you find that Kikuyu town is full of county thugs who are taking a lot of money from motorcycles, from motorists, from every truck. coming to deliver goods at Kikuyu Town, and that is something that must be streamlined as soon as possible. The other thing is that we are going to ensure that the money that is given by the county for business growth is prudently given to the businesses and business community around Kikuyu Ward.
All right. Mr. Nina.
One, we have to appreciate that during our tenure, we were given the trophy by the World Bank for the digitalization of revenue collected. Within a click of a button, you are to know the revenue for Thika sub-county. Within a click of a button, you are to know the revenue for Githunguri or Gatodo. We had those systems in place. We had the local area network for Kikuyu sub-county, whereby you can identify the amount of money for the parking fees, for the licenses through your phone. We had the wide area network for the entire Kiambu County, whereby that system you could have known each and every revenue for all the 12 sub-counties for Kiambu County. So that digitalization of revenue should be enhanced so that the money for revenue doesn't end up in somebody's pocket.
All right, thank you.
Yes, mine is a question of looking on a 4-pillar model so that we can create what we call a conducive environment for the entrepreneurs or for the business community. It begins first of all by the policies that are there. The regressive taxation. As has been mentioned, we have a lot of taxation. You find before even you set up, there are a lot of licenses that you need to pay, that you need to overcome before you even actually set up. It's a question of harmonization. I will not harmonize alone, but also the same crime is happening in the same county. How do you harmonize and get one license that the traders can pay? And also in terms of harmonization, how do you pay your tax based on your turnover? If your turnover is 10 million, why don't you pay taxation that is equivalent to your turnover? If you're a small trader, why don't you equivalent to your turnover? So it's a policy around harmonization and compliance. The other thing that will